Are we waiting, or are we, maybe somebody from the floor wants to?
Just 1 minute.
Okay, so we're waiting for a minute? Okay. Can you tell I'm not a super patient person? That was intense, wasn't it? I have to talk. I'm sorry. I just can't bear the awkward silence. And I have an audience, and I'm going to go home and not have an audience for many, many minutes. So, that was intense, right?
Yeah.
So, thank you. Thank you. Let's do it.
Question for any of our 3 guests. Here we go.
So you said you wouldn't describe your appearance as masculine. How would you describe your appearance in being so?
Who?
Della Gracie.
Me. Intersexy. I mean, I don't have any, what would you call it? Investment, that's the word I'm looking for. I don't have an investment in masculinity, and I've never seen myself as a very masculine person. Aggressive, but not necessarily masculine. So I try to disrupt that reading of me, you know, and I know other people, it's very important to accentuate that reading. And, you know, I'm attracted to people for whom who walk in the world in an obviously feminine body with a masculine gender expression, which I think is really hard to do. And it's like when I walk in the world like this, I'm read as a gay man or some kind of queer. So yeah, one has to take care and be careful these days, all days. Thanks.
It was just more for you the question, because I do come to this event quite a lot, and I do still feel that the queer scene is quite separated into, let's talk in the skin color and all this. It's still a very separated scene in some way, where we should be much more progressive in a way. And this is going into all kinds of underground scenes, so I was wondering more your look at it and where it kind of comes from, or if you think there is some kind of way forward.
I think I was actually speaking to somebody who programs for whatever, like literally about 20 minutes ago, and they were just saying that they wanted to make sure that there was at least 2 people of colour on the bill for every show, and I think things like that change things just very obviously, not only because it means that like people who come and don't feel represented all the time will come back because they see reflections of themselves and their experiences presented on stage, but also because people are inspired to feel like they can perform in queer spaces, and because of it, I also feel like before conversations like that were even happening, people were creating their own spaces. There's an amazing show called the Cocoa Butter Club that happens at the last Thursday of every month, which is like specifically about showcasing people of colour in the cabaret scene, and that things like that, creating our own spaces, are the only ways forward, because it helps to craft your voice and also to meet like queer people of colour. I feel as though when I was growing up I didn't even know there were queer people of colour. That's how little we're reflected.
I was thinking that Del spoke about their parents, but nobody else spoke about their parents, and you've done a show with your dad.
Yes.
So I don't know, maybe we could talk about parents, and because you talked about being a parent, and yeah, I don't know, maybe we could talk about parents.
Shall I tell you
My mother's here.
Where is your mother?
She's right there.
Raise your hand, Mom. Yay.
My dad is a children's entertainer. He does Punch and Judy, and which is horrible. It's really, really horrible, and he just lets it off for all its horribleness. And I don't know. And Dad makes balloon models and magic tricks and stuff. And he's very small. So he's just not, and you know, he can't really lift heavy things. So he's just not very, I don't think he's very traditionally masculine at all. But this, he doesn't, but because of this, because he doesn't like feel like a big masculine strong man, he has no clue, and I've been trying to tell him through the process of making the show about what he gets from being a man. That he gets, like, people listen to him more, and he gets to say more outrageous things, and it'd be more acceptable. And it's taken me ages to, like, get him to understand that. Because he's not like a traditionally masculine person. And my mum is a maths teacher. And she is, you know, she's, do you know what, she's really well respected in the field of Saxon weaving. Yeah, she can weave. Oh my gosh.
Wow,
All sorts. She got this fleece off a sheep, and she got combs. She made combs out of wooden nails, combed it all out. Then she spun it on a spinning wheel, and then she dyes it using dye that she's made out of vegetables she has grown in the garden. And then she knit you a jumper. Wow. And it's all itching. Wow. I just want like something a bit more polyester, cotton.
Can I ask a question too? You were talking about being attractive, and there was something that you said that really resonated with me there about like you were able to give up this idea that being attractive meant being feminine, you know, or being like having a body, like there's a socialization that your primary, I think anyway, that when you're a woman, the idea is you have to be attractive in a certain way. You have to kind of conform to these ideas and meet this certain level of beauty, whatever it is in your community, right? And I know that for me, I always used to admire wash and go lesbians, you know, the kind that could just wash and go, didn't require a people, but men were like that a lot. But the dykes that could just wash and go and didn't require like, you know, makeup or much preparation, they were the butches, not the femmes. And then I got to become kind of wash and go myself, which meant for me letting go of this idea, this need to be pleasing to other people, and replace it with the need to be pleasing to myself. I just wanted to tell you that in case I forgot, because that was really powerful part of what you were talking about for me.
Yeah, I still think I want to be pleasing to other people.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about that because...
Well, so do I, but it's not an obligation in the same way.
Yeah.
And when you're doing drag or whatever, it's like you know that there's different standards. You know that you're hot, you know, in a way that is not disempowering, because being hot in a feminine body can feel objectifying and disempowering, and it's really hard. But when you're in like drag, or when you're being like in this more masculine thing, it's like there's a greater, you can take up more space, right? That's the beauty of drag kinging too.
That's kind of what I was trying to get at with my question to you about like how do cis men respond to your performances, or like is the male gaze deflected by your performances? Because for me, like for years and years as an artist, I tried to produce images of female desire, like for the female gaze, but my images were like constantly co-opted and like taken and used for purposes that were not the intention. And I thought what was potentially really great about drag kinging is that it doesn't lend itself quite so easily to that co-opting.
I'm not sure how it could be co-opted, so I think I probably agree, because it is difficult to do. But
Yeah.
I think I'd also definitely agree with what you were saying about like not having, like you just are sexy, there's no work that needs to be done. Like whenever I am performing as a man, I just know my attractiveness, like it's a very laid back, like come to me because I'm really hot and you know that you want me. Which is the opposite to my feminine sexuality, which is very much like front-footed and very like, and it feels a lot more like there's more to perform, and so I always find it really liberating to explore masculine sexuality because it feels very like laid back, sexy.
I get that, yeah.
Easy sexy.
Yeah.
But what does that say about like femininity in that case? You know, it's like I think there's like within kind of queer dyke culture, there's also this daddy boy and boy on boy stuff, and kind of and early, if any of you were there at whatever last night, I showed a lot of pictures from the 90s and queer sexuality then, and there was a lot of taking, like, appropriating gay male space and, boy on boy stuff going on, and it felt like it was like outside this heterosexist world, and out of that paradigm you could be sexy in a different way when you embraced a more masculine of center expression, I think. Which is why I did a book called Femmes of Power, Exploding Queer Femininities, because it did seem like, once again, the Drag King book is my only book that's gone into a second printing, that's been on Sex and the City, that's had a lot of attention, in a way that queer femininity, just, femininity in general, is not elevated to the same way. So that can be a little problem for me with the whole drag king, female masculinity, trans masculine kind of motif, let's say, conceptualization, because is it at the expense of femininity? And is that sexist in itself? And I think in queer set circles, we all know drag kings get a hell of a lot more attention than femmes do, right?
But then I think that's to do with the fact that as a drag king, you are performing on that day. Like I've seen so many like bio queens or like female drag queens who I think get a lot. Like I performed on Wednesday at the RVT, and like there were so many queer femmes, and they were like, I was almost jealous because I was the only drag king, and I was like, oh, I want to be in makeup, like you all look so pretty, I'm a boring boy. So I think I disagree with that. I think also like with the way that our show kind of works, it feels like we're performing for you, and that empowers you, whether you're like a femme, like lesbian, or like a straight man. Like you're embraced within, you're feminized by us being boys to men for you. I feel like queer femininity, maybe as a result of what we try to do, feels elevated, because I
agree with you. I think it's like that now, but I think that when I was like really in the middle of drag king culture, which was 20 years ago, it was definitely the case that femmes were the props for the drag kings,
right,
which generated a lot of bio queens and a lot of more femme, queer femme performance, which I think was great. But I'm still questioning the way in which queer culture elevates masculinity and lowers, like, even, cis men, cis gay men. It's all pretty hyper masculine in both, lesbian and gay. And not so, I think trans is a little different, trans communities, and in intersex communities, which is just beginning, I think, non-binary is probably more the place people are embracing too.
But I think that says more about the impact of the patriarchy upon the queer scene. Like,
yeah, it does.
It's like they can't, you think that they're separate, and I think when I first came out I was like, yes, it's a new world, it's an brave new world. But actually seeing the way that the patriarchy still impacts the community, the way that race still impacts the community, like they aren't completely separate. But I feel like for me, because I am much more femme presenting outside of drag, I feel like like in the drag king scene, because like there's one side that is like I'm performing one thing, and then as a person in the scene, as myself, I'm very femme. I feel empowered in both ways because, so.
That's cool though. I know what you mean. I do, because I mean, I feel like in my family household, and I am the femme. I get to still be the femme. You know, I am actually the Mormon housewife my father hoped I would grow up to be. You know, and I embrace that because it's a way of me, what is the word I'm looking for? Like distancing myself or deprivileging myself of the masculine privilege that actually is put upon me. And the assumptions, and it's kind of, it sucks to never be seen or rarely be seen as you are, of who you are. So luckily having two little creatures that are calling, Mapa, 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 you know, constantly. I'm outed constantly. It's like, Mapa? What is that? Are you a single parent trying to embrace both roles? That's what I was told the other day. Yeah, so I think that, you know, for me, gender is getting to a place where we can play with it, and the way you use it, particularly politically, I think is just so great and important, because I'm like really super into politics, and I like to see political drag king performances that are like, you know, you socked it to us, and that's what needs to happen in, you know, rooms like these, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a comment. I disagree with you saying about drag kings having an effect on femininity, because back in London in the 80s, the lesbians were predominantly very butch, and if you had an ounce of sexuality or femininity in you, you were kind of derided for it. My partner had terrible trouble saying, you're never going to get a girlfriend if you don't cut your hair. Constantly being asked if she was gay, if she knew this was a gay club. You do know this is a gay club.
But that's not against what I'm saying. That is what I am saying. I'm not saying the opposite.
Whereas I think I was suggesting that I feel like it's changed. I
don't think it's really changed. I mean, I do hate the term lipstick lesbians, but you look at women these days, and you're not all butch. You know, it's a wide variety, and I just think that things has changed a lot definitely since the 80s. You no longer get asked if you're a lesbian anymore, do you? That was it, really. That was my comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I wanted to say that I should have said when you said that I look queer, I should have then said that I actually learned how to put on makeup from Bird La Bird.
Oh, very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Well
I went to a makeup workshop, so now I know how to do the basic face. Yeah, anyway, thought I'd share that.
Well, that's called queer community service. Thank you, Bird La Bird, for providing it.
I find it's interesting being heavily involved in the drag king scene, and there's a lot of drag kings now actually who identify as non-binary, which is really, really great, I myself included. But it's interesting, as female-bodied people, or majority female-bodied people, our non-binariness is accepted and understood almost, but it seems that I know a few drag queens who identify as non-binary as well, but it's never taken seriously. In the male-bodied world, it's never, but this is I'm speaking from personal experience, of course. In the male-bodied world, their non-binariness isn't, you know, oh, you have a penis, therefore you are a cis man and you can't be anything else, which I found interesting. I just wonder if you had any thoughts on that. I don't know, for me, my take on it is that if someone has a penis, it's like they're forced to be a cis man and they can't be anything else.
Yeah, it's just transphobic.
Yeah.
Like, that's just so
Precisely, yeah,
transphobic.
yeah.
And like, it's also interesting that it's okay if you're non-binary as a like female assigned like person like at birth, because like then like you're aspiring to in people's minds masculinity, so that seems okay. But like if you're male assigned at birth and you're aspiring to femininity in their minds, then that is wrong, and you have to be a cis male. Like that's it.
Like a
The only
downstep.
thing I could think in that sort of pregnant pause was like, fuck that. That was the only like thing I could think. So I didn't really have a response other than like blind rage.
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's really important to have for communities which I think are often dominated by people queer communities on the trans-masculine spectrum, like at whatever, you have a lot of different kinds of genders, but it's still predominantly assigned female at birth, queer identified, somewhat mixed racially, but it's a great mixed space. Don't get me wrong, it's my favorite space in London, but it is in a lot of academic conferences that I go to too. It's very few trans women. And because I have a child that is now saying that they're a girl with a penis, it is particularly important to me that, you know, that there are spaces for them in my own community, which I hope will, you know, I'm sure will embrace them. But it's like, you know, also you have to, how do you tell this child the world is a hostile place, not just for those assigned female at birth, but for those who choose a feminine expression, you know, and it's complicated. It's like there's also a lot of privileges to being cis and, you know, being a cis woman. So it's not one thing or the other, but I'm really so happy to see a queer community finally, because I moved here for the first time in '82. So I have been around London in the '80s. I do know what it was like. And I'm really happy to see how beautiful it has become and how open. And even though we do have Pride is next weekend, is it? You know, all of that stuff. I'm not a big flag waver for Pride because I think it's become so apolitical and corporate and white and all of those things. So I go to other prides that are actually still about challenging and not consuming.
Another thing about the girlfriend, because you don't want to talk about it?
No.
Okay.
Shall I?
Yeah.
So at this time in my life when I was really thinking about if, you know, how I want to see myself, gender-wise, if I want hormones, things like that, somehow, and I don't really know how it happened, I managed to get quite a transphobic girlfriend. And it was a really odd experience. I don't know how I didn't notice while she was being quite horrid to me about looking like a boy. But it was such a big deal. But it really slowed down the process of deciding because I just got my defensive back up. And I think if I'd have stayed for longer, I think I would have just transitioned out of spite.
I think it's interesting with non-binary drag kings that I've seen because it is such an incredible political vehicle. I'd maybe argue a bit more so than with drag queens. I don't know why, but from the drag kings that I've seen, it feels like there's often a more political edge to them. What I love about seeing non-binary drag kings is that it feels like that can come into it, and it's the few times where I've seen in a queer space discussion about trans issues, other than the amazing Travis Alabanza, who I'm obsessed with. But I think the thing that I love about non-binary drag kings is I learn so much and empathise so much in a direction in the queer community that I don't often get a really deep insight into in a public space.
Don't leave just yet, because we need to thank our three wonderful guests, Lucy Hudson, Della Grace Volcano, and Tanya. I think it's been a fantastic show with laughter and tears, and I hope that my guests' criticality and their candor influences you to think and question the norms that we're raised with around gender, and go out in the world and fight the power. Woo!
It was the O Show, the show with the O. It was the O Show, the the show with the O. We talked and talked and talked and talked. Now we're out of time. It was the O Show. It was the O Show.